Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. This is Shannon Gallo, the Manager of Career Services here at the CUNY School of Professional Studies. Happy Friday to all of you. Thank you for joining us this morning. I think we're all in for a really wonderful panel discussion today. We have two panelists in the nonprofit world that will be speaking with us as our two industry insiders. So thank you all for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started through everything in the presentation. Once again, my name is Shannon Gallo. I oversee career services here at CUNY SPS. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. If you are returning, that means that you must find that our programs are worthwhile, so thank you. If you have any technical problems today, call 1-800-263-6317. If you need to speak with them, press 1 for GoToWebinar and then 2 for tech support. We hope that you will send us your questions for our panelists today during the webinar. You can send them in one of two ways there on your screen. If you're using a Mac, on the left, if you're using a PC, on the right. And we encourage you to send those questions in via the chat field at any point that we're speaking today. And then once our panelists have given their own career stories, we will go through and answer the questions. And finally, we are offering a live stream of captions during today's webinar. If you would like to utilize that service, the link has been provided in your chat field, and it's also on the bottom of this slide. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We just had our introduction. Then we will meet our panelists and hear about their respective backgrounds related to nonprofit careers and so forth. And then we'll go through the questions that you're sending in, and that'll be it. So let's go ahead and get started. I would like to first turn things over to one of our panelists today, Michelle C. Pinedo. She is an SPSer, as I like to call them. Michelle does have a degree from here at CUNY SPS, among other interesting things. I'm sure she'll be able to tell you a little about that. So without any further ado, Michelle, take it away.
Absolutely. Good morning, all. I'm so excited to participate in this webinar. I think that a discussion in nonprofit careers is really an important discussion to have. So I'd just like to talk about a little bit first about my educational pathway. So I attended several colleges in the City University of New York system. And I received my AAS degree in accounting from Borough of Manhattan Community College in 1991, so it's been quite some time. And then my Bachelor of Science degree in business from the CUNY School of Professional Studies in 2013. So as Shannon said, I am a SPSer and proud to be so. But I just want to give a little background. I actually started college in 1984. And so I just found that the best educational path for me was through an online platform. So I did a lot of research, and since I'd already attended college in the CUNY system, I found that the School of Professional Studies was the best, most logical place to complete my degree. And I've done so with the support of the School of Professional Studies and proudly received my degree, as I said, in 2013. So just to talk about more about my actual career. So I started my education pursuing a degree in English, but I had two small children, and I just became convinced that a degree in English would not really be able to sustain my family. So I did some research, career research, and back then you had to actually go to a library. You couldn't just Google. Google was not a verb back then. So I actually had to go to a library and I did career research, and I just found that accounting was a career that you could make money. So you could either really think about if organizations needed to know how much money they were making or were not making, that was a career that you can do whether the economy was good or not so good. So having done that research, I decided to go to enroll in Borough of Manhattan Community College to learn accounting. And I did so, and I graduated again in 1991. But after a few years of accounting experience, I became disillusioned with public accounting, and I transitioned to nonprofit accounting in 1998. And since then, I've worked in the nonprofit environment since. But I think that for me, particularly, I needed to feel like I was making a difference in the world, and it might sound a little hokey, but yeah, I just felt like the nonprofit accounting world was something that would speak to my thought process in terms of giving back. And so I transitioned from public accounting to nonprofit accounting, like I said, in 1998, and I've worked in a nonprofit accounting ever since. I think that when job seekers think of nonprofit work, you sometimes think of the program arena. So when you think of nonprofit, you think of just working in the programs and sustaining an organization through program work. But as an accountant, I have been able to support the program team by providing technical and financial expertise to grant proposals and financial support. So I found that working in the nonprofit arena, but bringing an accounting background has been really rewarding for me and also pertinent to the organizations where I've worked. I have also focused my nonprofit accounting career mainly in two areas. So the arts, where I've worked at museums and a ballet company. And currently I work for a relief and development foundation. So in terms of the arts, I was the controller at the Museum for African Art for about 9 years. And then also in arts, I was the CFO and the Chief Administrative Officer at Ballet Hispanico. So currently I work as the Vice President of Finance and Operations at Episcopal Relief and Development. We are an organization that partners with churches and other local organizations to rebuild after disasters, as well as fight hunger and poverty. So our work is particularly relevant at this time, given the success of hurricanes, earthquakes, and fires around the world. I would say that my work is challenging as well due to our political climate. We have a president that changes policy through tweets, and so we're never sure if our government funding will end, if our government funding will proceed. So that is a challenge just in the political arena without even thinking about the actual work that needs to be done. So currently my role as head of finance and operations, I manage finance, IT, HR teams. And for me, I found that superb time management and communication skills are crucial to success. So I would just say that even if you find that you have been working, if you're thinking about changing careers or starting a career in nonprofit, you can just bring a multitude of skill sets to the position, whatever position you decide. You don't always think of nonprofits as a career choice. You don't think of it as a career builder, but you can bring all types of skill set to the nonprofit arena. So, yeah. So definitely feel that for me and my career path that I wanted to always give back. And so although you don't think of an accountant as a career to give back, but it's definitely in the nonprofit arena something that you look for in terms of just bringing your skill set and then bringing back to local or international communities. So.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It was so refreshing to hear about your background and how committed you are to the organizations in which you've worked. And I think your perspective probably is one that a lot of our attendees can relate to in sort of trying to find your way and be able to use the skill sets and things that you're really, really good at in a way that makes you feel good and allows you to give back. So thank you for sharing all of that. I hope that our participants were listening closely and that you'll start sending us questions in soon. What we'll do first is we'll get to hear from our second panelist for today. Regina Howard Norman is joining us as well, and I will go ahead and turn things over to her so she can tell you all about her background. Regina?
Hi, good morning. So it's really great to be with you this morning to talk about the nonprofit industry and my progression in it. One of the things I've always wanted to do is to be of service. So my professional experience has been primarily working in the nonprofit sector. I think has been one of the most fulfilling things I could do to work on behalf of others. And I started out working initially at Covenant House. That was my first foray into the nonprofit sector, and that was a bit over 20 years ago. And at that time I was working with underserved youth, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to provide some sort of stability while they were transitioning to what was next for them. Having done that for about 3.5 years, I then began to work at other nonprofits such as Salvation Army and Lincoln Watch Services for Children. Those type of organizations really do need strong, committed professionals that have an array of backgrounds, as far as anywhere from social work to administrative roles and responsibilities, because those facets really help make a strong nonprofit work and thrive. My current position now, I am the branch manager for Dress for Success Worldwide New York programs. I've been with this organization for a bit over 10 years, almost 11, and it's been one of the best experiences I've had to date. Starting out at Covenant House, it was really like groundbreaking for me to see the array of what you can do in a nonprofit, and working with Dress for Success really is the combination of being of service and the administrative roles and responsibilities that takes in developing programs for the women that we serve. And it's really amazing how you can have a mission statement, say maybe 2 or 3 sentences, but the overall programs and the services we provide really stretch and grow according to the mission of our organization. So to give you an example, we started out initially suiting women because they needed professional attire for job interviews. We've expanded the breadth and scope of that to have job retention, job readiness programs, lifelong learning, financial education scholarships for women continuing their education, even retail industry programs and services. So working in a nonprofit is not a flat experience. It's actually very multi-layered. And it takes a lot of planning, execution, and really strategy to provide and execute great services to any population you serve. So sometimes people wonder, well, nonprofit sounds a little loose, some may stereotype it with is very laid back, it's kind of casual, but it's really the opposite. I think working in the nonprofit industry, you have to be focused because you have to meet outcomes, and you have to have metrics. So you have to be skilled at what you do because you depend on potential grants or foundations to be able to continue in your service. So you have to deliver on the services you say you provide to any given population. Um, my educational background is I went to John Jay College for Criminal Justice. One of my lifelong goals is to become an attorney working for people that cannot represent themselves. So it's just really a compliment that I work in a nonprofit sector for women and at one time youth that weren't able to uh, articulate their needs for themselves. So being at John Jay was a great experience. And then I have my master's from Metropolitan College of New York. At the time, it was Audrey Cohen. And what was really great about this level of education is because you really got to see that working in nonprofit it's not just about what you do for the individuals. It's respecting the fact that any individual demographic you serve has the choice to receive or not receive the services. Um, and sometimes that could be challenging when you have been experienced in your particular area and you want to help an individual or a group of folks and they may not be receptive to that support. So it's really important that you kind of have a sense of who you are and what you're there to do. At the end of any given day, you're always there to do your level best. And it really is up to the demographic you serve to be receptive to the resource. Keeping in mind that we all have to meet our deliverables, right? Because that's how we get to continue in the vision and mission and scope of any organization we're a part of. So there's always the strategy. There's the planning. There's definitely a lot of planning when you have to execute layers of programs. So I've been responsible for executing financial education programs, job retention programs, job readiness programs, lifelong learning programs, even educational opportunities to a variety of women that come through our doors. And so you have to definitely have a sense of time management, commitment to meeting your goals, and sometimes going the extra mile. And that's also in any industry, whether it's corporate, nonprofit, businesses. Each business has the same goal. There's a product and a service. In nonprofit, we may not look at it that way, but it is. If you offer a service to a particular group of folks, well, then that's a thing that you offer. It may not be selling because your services may be free, but it still is something that you have to offer. And all businesses have a product. So your product may be a job retention program. Your product may be a financial education program, but you still have to tailor it and market it to the demographic that you want to receive this resource. So you also have to always be business oriented and focused on how to make it a win-win situation for the people you're serving and for the organization you're a part of. And there's always that balance of you want it to be successful and you want it to reach the people that need the service the most. So I think my experience over these years, I still love what I do. I love serving, and I think the beauty of working in a nonprofit sector is that you can really work to serve in any given nonprofit industry. It's just really a matter of choice. But what I will say for professionals that are thinking about what to do next, I'm almost finished my education. I'm ready to take a stab into the next level of my career. I will say this. It's important to create a strategy for yourself. Look at what it is you want to do, and think about how that plays out in your everyday life. Because while you want to give, you want to be a part of helping someone else in their journey, remember the journey starts with you. So you must think about the strategy of how you show up for yourself. Uh, Create a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. What does that look like for you? Do you want to, what part of nonprofit would you like to engage in? Check out the career ladders to see which organizations may give you more flexibility and have the opportunity for you to grow and use your skill sets. If you're thinking about, locality where you want to live, well, look at the bigger nonprofits that are national versus local. So if you want to move or relocate, you may have those opportunities. So you really want to be strategic. I think working a nonprofit is awesome, but you really have to have a plan for yourself, because you can get caught up in the mission and vision of the organization, and you look around and say, oh my God, I'm still here. And that may not be a bad thing. It may be great. But if you don't have a plan, or every once in a while tweak where you are, what you want to do, you can get caught up. So just for your own personal self, create a strategy. Ask yourself the hard questions. Is this what I want to do? Think about the financial investment you've already made in your education, and looking at that over the years. How do I want to end up? Where would I like to live? If I'm thinking about family and, children, how does that play out in working in the nonprofit sector? So when you do that for yourself, when you begin working in the nonprofit industry, you'll be able to have authentic conversations, whether it's with your peers, with the people you serve, with your supervisors, because now you have a sense of who you are and what you're up to. So if I were to offer anything outside of the love of working in the nonprofit industry, take care of yourself and create a strategy. Do it like it's a term paper. You are the product. You are the primary source. You need to get an A for you. What does that look like? And go from there.
Thank you, Regina. I like how you ended that. I think it's a perfect segue to go into some of our Q&A today with Michelle and Regina. So what I'll do, we've got a couple questions coming in. Please send more. We've got about 20 minutes or so left in the webinar, so I hope to hear from more of you with questions. We're getting a couple of things coming in, and I'll go ahead and let me start this one with Michelle. I think it may be in reference to something she had mentioned. Michelle, you had mentioned that people that are in fields similar to yours, like accounting, for example, may not necessarily think about the nonprofit sector when they're searching for careers and jobs. And
Right.
Why do you think that's the case? Why is it that some people wouldn't necessarily think of nonprofit versus a for-profit company when they're
Right.
thinking about jobs?
So I think that for when you're in school and before you become, have experience in the career track, the track is to be a public accountant. And so that career track means that you have to work in public accounting and you have to get your CPA, but that's not necessarily true. So you can take that skill set and become a CMA, where you can be a certified management accountant. So I think that a lot of what we hear as when we're in school and before we really get into the career track of an accountant is that you have to be a CPA. You don't have to be a CPA. You can take your skill set of accounting and then transition that to private accounting and to nonprofit accounting. And so I think that we need to really have that type of discussion, that accounting can take many forms. And if the for-profit arena doesn't speak to you, that there are different ways that you can still progress in the profession. And I'm a great example that you can still progress in the accounting profession without being a CPA. And the CMA, which is the Certified Management Accountant, is a way to go without taking away from what you believe as just an individual. And so, yeah, so I had to find that out the hard way. So I started on that career track of being a public accountant. And I just felt like that piece of really being connected to community, being connected to the international, really global way of thinking about the world was missing in that CPA track for me. So just being able to figure out that career path can take a different turn was great. So, right. So I think that as accountants, when you're in school and when you're in college, we are fed that we need to be CPAs, but that's not necessarily the case. And my career is a good example of how you can still have a high level accounting career without going that CPA route.
Thank you, Michelle. Do you think that there are, and maybe it's a broader conversation than just for accountants, but do you think that there is any truth to assumptions people make, and Regina, I'll get your input on this as well, assumptions that people make about the nonprofit world being a different kind of culture, less job security, lower pay? I mean, are those some of the things that you think keep people from looking at nonprofit as a career path? Regina, why don't you give me some input and then I'll go back over to Michelle.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Working in the nonprofit sector the landscape of nonprofit is huge. There are so many different organizations out there that have a breadth and scope. There are local nonprofits, there are nonprofits that are national, even international or global nonprofits. So if you're going into the nonprofit sector, you can really create a strategy and determine which nonprofits are more stable than others, because that's for any company, whether it's corporate or a business. You have to do your research. You have businesses that are, take 3 to 5 years before they can make a profit, and you start up in year 1 and then you don't have a job in year 3. So in the nonprofit sector, you want to also do your research, do your homework, find out how long that nonprofit's been around, find out what type of programs and services they offer, so that you could determine whether that nonprofit will still be viable, 10, 15, 20 years from now. Is their mission something that can stretch in the scope of the things that are happening with the future, where you feel you have an opportunity to grow? If you go with a smaller nonprofit, well, you may have a challenge of growth and development. But again, it depends on what you want to do. And sometimes you can be in a smaller nonprofit and then transition into a larger one based on your skill set and experience you've acquired. As far as stability, I've been working at the same nonprofit now for 10 years. So there is job security working in the nonprofit sector. What you may want to do is compare the price points, right? Salary is always an issue and concern in any industry. Nonprofit is kind of notoriously known for not having a higher salary price points because of what we do and it being a nonprofit industry. However, sometimes the bigger the companies, the bigger the outcomes as far as salaries are concerned. So you may start somewhere and your salary initially is an entry-level experience. But 2 or 3 years after that, you can market and use what you've learned and gained in your skill sets now and transition that to a bigger, large nonprofit. And then you can gain the salary to commiserate or compensate the skill sets you've acquired. And that's really for almost a lot of industries, right? So you want to just weigh the pros and cons to determine for yourself what's the path you want to create.
I think you make some great points there, Regina, and that sort of leads me to another question that we just had come in terms of, what you can offer the organization and, sort of what you do to move up in careers in the nonprofit sector. And Michelle, I'll go ahead and let you touch on this one. I know you attended SPS and you got your degree after you had been away from college for a little while. There's a question about how is education versus experience weighted in the nonprofit world, sort of in the context of entering a career or moving up. in a nonprofit career?
Right. So I would say that the difference between the education and a for-profit and nonprofit career is vast. So I was able to kind of push my way up and move forward without a bachelor's degree. But I think that once I received a bachelor's degree from SPS, the CUNY SPS, I was able to like leap ahead in terms of the type of work I was able to do. So although I was able to do the same type of work that before I had the degree, I think that the degree was I think that the organizations that I work for enabled me to really take the titles that I wouldn't have been able to have before I received the SPS degree. But having said all of that, I think the work that you're able to do really needs to speak to who you are as a person. So although I started my career, my educational career as an English major, so I wanted to be a writer, but I found that I had children and I had to think about really how I would be able to support my family as a writer, and that wasn't something I was able to do, at least at that time, as a thought process of supporting my family as a writer. So when I decided to really think about career strategies, the accountant strategy was something that I needed to do. And I felt like being an accountant, whether organizations are making money or not making money, you need an accountant to tell you that. And so that was my career path in terms of just really being able to support my family. But Shannon, and just really specifically in regard to your question, I think that having a degree then solidified and vilified my experience. So although I didn't have that 4-year degree, I was able to move up in terms of accounting through just my sheer will. So I was able to learn grant accounting and then nonprofit accounting, just based on me just being that person there and just pushing ahead. So just the experience and having that degree, I think that those two things together really can help you to move forward in the nonprofit sector. Like, you also have to have experience, and they want to just check off that degree so that you can just move ahead and be really a real strong manager. So
Thank you, Michelle. Regina and I are sitting here shaking our heads and agreeing with what you're saying. Okay, so let me take a little bit of a different direction. Thank you for sharing that. I think what you said could be applicable to other industries too, but
right.
It's interesting to hear your perspective in that, you had worked within sort of your same career path before the degree and after, so thank you. We're getting some questions about, students and maybe transitioners, people looking to work within the nonprofit area. When Regina was telling us about her career, she went over some things like time management, marketing, thinking in a business-oriented sense. What are some other skills that you think are important for someone who wants to break into nonprofits? And if you do any hiring, what are the kinds of things that you really feel like are must see in resumes or in candidates you're meeting? Regina, you want to start that one?
Oh, great. So when we look for people to work in nonprofit, not depending on the sector you want to take on, always make sure that you don't have to have a certain degree or certification for that particular industry. For instance, if you need an MSW or LSW, you wouldn't apply for that job. But if it says preferred, not necessary, then you start to take stock of your work experience and your skills and what you bring to the table. When I look for potential hirees, I'm looking for someone that has really great transferable skills, have proven some level of leadership in their given companies, was able to manage programs or maybe a team, and had shown some level of consistency and really added to the deliverables of the industry they were in prior to coming to Dress for Success. So in that, and even in my other places of employ, when I was hiring, I would look for transitionals, transferable skills. So if you are like what Michelle said, your sheer will can put you in front of really great people, and then you have that opportunity to build a bridge of why what you did in one company would be really great working in a nonprofit sector. So what I would suggest is that you do your research and you do your homework. Find out what are the things you like that matches with the industries you want to be a part of. Then find out what type of skill sets and degrees you may need or not need, and then you will go ahead and start doing maybe informational interviews to just get a sense of what that could look like for you. Maybe there's some online course you can take, or some workshops or certifications. You may not have to go to school the whole route of a degree, but figure that out. And for companies that are willing to be flexible, you have to also be willing to be flexible because you're starting at a different curve. So if you're transitioning from a given industry to a new industry, you may consider that your salary range may fluctuate according to the fact that you have to transition into a different sector now. So consider that as well.
I think you make a great point. Michelle, do you have the opportunity to do any hiring or anything like that in your role? And is there anything different that you could add that is sort of a must-have when you're looking and screening candidates for organizations?
Absolutely. I would also echo Regina when she talks about just really being prepared and doing your research for any organization that you are thinking about working for. So just for clarification, I'm the Vice President of Finance and Operations. So that means I manage IT, HR, and finance. So it runs a spectrum of organizational support. So what I've found in terms of just really reaching out to people that want to work for our organization is that a lot of people haven't done their homework about our organization. So they want to come and maybe work for us, but they haven't really done the research about who our organization is and what we strive to achieve. And so I would just say that one of the things that we're looking for is people that really have a passion for what we do as an organization. So Episcopal Relief and Development, we do development work around the world. And we also do relief work. So as you know, just looking at the news, that there have been many hurricanes and fires. And so what we do is we help people rebuild their lives after such disasters. And so we have found that people that come to work here don't really understand what we do as an organization. So just really doing your homework about what the organization does and how you can bring your skill set to support the organization is really important. So just as a hiring manager, I've just found that people don't do their homework and they don't understand what is needed to support the organization. So I think that's something that a skill set, there are many skill sets that you can bring to nonprofits, but just understanding what you need to bring to a particular organization is important. And the other point I would like to make is that people think that working for a nonprofit really means that you might have a salary range that is lower than a for-profit organization. But I think that people really understand the importance of nonprofits in just this world, and particularly in the political arena that we're in, where we're not sure about how people that are in need are supported. And so when you think about a nonprofit career, you don't necessarily have to think about getting a salary that is less than. And so you just really need to bring your skill set to the table and really understand that there's real uh, salaries that can be comparable to for-profit organizations.
Thank you for adding that, Michelle. I think many times people make a lot of assumptions about organizations, and as you mentioned, really doing your research and finding out about the organization and trying to grasp what their, sort of true mission is. And I think a lot of people going into interviews are more focused on what's in it for me. But if you're preparing for an interview, a lot of times I like to try to remind people I'm advising that you have to think about what's in it for the organization and how that organization would benefit from having you on their team. So thanks for sharing those things, Michelle. We're just about out of time, so I wanted to go ahead and end and ask each of you sort of an unusual question, and I think it's kind of fun sometimes to end our webinars like this. So I'll go ahead. Regina, if you were not working in the kind of role that you're working in today, what do you think you would be doing instead?
Oh, I can absolutely tell you, I'd be a practicing attorney.
A practicing attorney, okay.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
That's something I'm still pursuing, actually.
Good for you.
So, yeah, and working with a civic-based organization. Still in a similar
Still in a similar capacity, and in supporting others and figuring out how you can offer support otherwise for other people. But
Absolutely.
Interesting. Michelle, I don't know if I know the answer to yours or not, but what do you think you would be doing if you weren't in the kind of job you're in now? What do you think you'd be doing instead?
Shannon, I would do the exact thing, exactly what I'm doing now. This is a dream job. So I can take my accounting degree. How boring is accounting? However, I can now use it to change people's lives. I get to travel all over the world. We have 40 countries that we work in at Episcopal Relief and Development. So I get to travel to 40 countries year round and just make sure that our programs are supported. I would do nothing different. So this is what I would be doing. I'm a vice president of finance and operations. So I get to also manage IT, HR, and finance. So this is what I'll be doing. This is the dream. And I must add to that, Shannon, that because I graduated from School of Professional Studies, even though I had the experience, it's really the degree that let me really get seen by organizations to know that I have the experience, but now I also have the degree. So, yes.
That's very refreshing to hear, Michelle. I wasn't sure if maybe you would say you'd want to be a writer or a novelist.
Nope. But yeah, so Shannon, like you said, I did start college in 1984 as an English major, but no, I would still end up here. So I'm glad I was able to travel that journey to end up where I would want to be.
Well, I think this is a perfect way to end today's webinar. Let me just say thank you to both of our panelists today. I certainly enjoyed hearing about your career paths and the different ideas, and I appreciate all of the advice that you've shared with us today. So thank you, Michelle. It was a pleasure hearing from you and working with you once again. And to Regina, I also appreciate your participation today. I thought that both of you brought such interesting and helpful perspectives. So I hope everyone enjoyed today's webinar. You'll get a survey pop up when the webinar ends, so please just take a quick minute and answer those questions. Let us know what you thought. And I wish everyone the happiest of holidays and a happy Friday. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.